Hello, everybody. For this week's database research assignment, using newspapers and the ProQuest website itself, I decided to use one of the topic suggestions, which was the sinking of the Maine. As a high school history teacher, I do discuss this, my colleagues and we discuss this topic, the sinking of the Maine, but it's very surfacey. Even at the AP level, I've never really delved into it. So I thought, why not use this as an opportunity to see what the database can tell us? And if I were to present this not to a high school class, but actually to a historical society, how would I use the newspaper articles to tell the narrative? And I found that the database itself was really easy to use and gave me a plethora of resources. So when I plugged in Sinking of the Maine, I got 5,801 hits. Of those, the first 453 were actually about the sinking of the Maine. The rest of them were about the words the, sinking, Maine. I now know quite a bit about the state of Maine. But the first 453 really helped me frame how I would present this. So I would start by saying and discussing the background. And the background is in the 1890s, the people of Cuba were rebelling against the Spanish government that controlled the island. The American corporations were making money there, and so to show a sign of strength, the American government under McKinley sent the SS Maine there to the Havana harbor, and it mysteriously blows up amidst this revolt. There is a bit about the war that results, but there's a lot about remembering the Maine. So remembering the Maine is a phrase that was much bigger than we realize in the pop culture of the day. Even the articles show us that 20 years later there was a remembrance, 33 years later there was a remembrance, 40, 50, even 60 years later there were these remembrance gatherings by veterans to remember what had happened, who had perished, to commemorate them. I found it fascinating that 33 years afterwards, 10,000 people in Cuba showed up to one of these gatherings and one of these remembrances. I thought it was interesting that the phrase "remember the Maine" was much bigger than we realized because it was part of the pop culture of the previous generations or two generations ago. There's this article that says War Department has proof of peril to U.S. General Marshall. General Marshall was the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Armed Services during World War II. Chief of Staff assesses Bering data might produce, quote, something like the sinking of the Maine, end quote, to draftees. So, we always look at World War II as everybody was gung-ho to get on board and help end the war. But apparently it wasn't as easy as we think, because this shows that there were concerns by the government to how certain events were being portrayed by the population. There are firsthand accounts by survivors. Charles A. Lohan, a survivor of the Maine, was a yeoman who climbed up onto the poop deck. At the same time, there is one by a Rear Admiral Clevis, who was then a midshipman. So we get lots of different firsthand narratives that come out of this. And then what I really enjoyed was, over time, because these are newspaper articles, by the 1970s, we get historical analyses of the cause of it. So one of them is the classic Admiral Rickover investigation into what the cause was. We originally thought that the cause of the sinking of the Maine was saboteurs, but actually it's really a poor design. And Rickover's analysis of many explosions of the time of that class of ship showed that it was design flaw, not saboteur. And then I found something I had never seen before. Smoking blew up the Maine, says vet. Washington Post, Times Herald, 1973. Look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you very much.